Good afternoon and welcome back to the CogX Festival. My name is Anushka Sharma. I'm the founder of tech and space innovation consultancy Nought, and I'm delighted to be your MC today. And greetings and welcome to the Planet and Smart Cities stage. Now, what a day we've had. We're now here for our final keynote presentation. The topic is on radical ideas to save our planet. How perfect could that be as we digest and decompress everything we've listened to today? I'm delighted to introduce Phil Gross, the founder and chairman of Idealab. Phil, welcome to CogX.
Thank you very
The
much.
floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, I'm really excited to share with you radical ideas to save the planet, using technological innovation as our best weapon to solve the planet. And the reason we need to do that so badly is that our world is on fire. It's incredible what's been happening to the planet in the last years. It's really because we're trashing the earth. And many people know that we create a lot of trash. Every person on the planet makes about 1 pound of trash into landfills every day. So about 7 billion pounds of trash go into landfills every day. What most people don't know is that we put about 31 pounds of CO2 trash into the atmosphere every day. So we put 31 times as much stuff up in the sky as we do into the ground. And it's amazing how much that is. It's each of us is adding about 100,000 cubic meters of CO2 every single day. And if we could visualize it, maybe if it was not so clear and transparent, maybe we would have acted sooner because of how much we're doing. But we're using this thin sliver of our atmosphere as the landfill for our CO2. And what it's doing to the earth is unbelievable. The extra heat that we're adding to the earth is equivalent of 3 Hiroshima bombs going off every single second of every single day. That's how much extra energy that CO2 we're putting up there is bringing in below our atmosphere. So it's incredible what that causes. The effects have been catastrophic. We have more severe fires, we have more severe droughts, more severe storms, and there's much, much worse to come. In just one season, 500 million animals died in Australia. And we're going to have many, many more fire seasons like that. However, the solution is simple. Maybe just 4 words. Those 4 words, stop burning fossil fuels, sounds so easy, but is very, very challenging because we love our lifestyles. Fossil fuels account for all of our comfort and convenience and our GDP growth and so many things in the world. And that's why it's so hard to do that simple thing. It's because energy is the most important industry on earth. The GDP per capita of civilization was very, very flat right up until the Industrial Revolution. Right when we learned how to harness cheap energy, our per capita GDP took off like a rocket ship. You can see it going up in the 1800s and then taking off like crazy in the 1900s. And energy is the entire largest industry on earth. It's 10% of the whole $86 trillion GDP, $8.6 trillion every single year. And cost really matters. Low cost energy is what gives us that comfort and convenience. And every single penny you reduce off the cost per kilowatt hour leads to almost $1 trillion of additional market size. So nuclear down to renewables, now to natural gas, down to coal, down to oil. Every single penny means the market gets way, way larger because that's how price sensitive we are. And people are not willing to pay more. When energy prices go up, people riot in the streets sometimes. Like that's how important energy is to our lifestyle. So I really feel the way to solve this is to make renewable energy cheaper. We just need to make renewable energy cheaper than fossil fuels. So how do we do it? How do we make renewable energy cheaper than fossil fuels? Well, I'm going to tell you the story of my passion around this and the lessons that I learned in starting more than 150 companies, my journey to discovering the answers to how to do that. And hopefully some of these lessons learned will be valuable for all the other things we need to do to solve this big, big problem. Well, my journey began with a transformative event. I was 15 years old and I saw gasoline rationing as a teenager. It was during the energy crisis in 1973, during the oil embargo, and there were long lines of cars waiting to buy $5 of rationed gasoline every day. In fact, you couldn't even buy it every day. You only could buy $5 of gasoline on odd or even numbered days based on the last digit of your license plate. So I remember my mother couldn't even buy enough gasoline to drive us to school. My brother and I would ride our bikes or take the bus long distances to school every day just because gasoline was so scarce. And I remember seeing this happen and thinking, this is unbelievable. There's another place on earth that has the fossil fuel and they can choose to not ship it. and they can cause hardship all over the planet. We need to find a way to have everybody be able to make their own energy with the resources they have. So I started reading everything I could about alternative energy. I would go to the library after school, read everything about it. I would read Popular Science and Scientific American and all the books I could find on this. And I got excited about solar energy. I started making little solar concentrators and parabolas, first out of cardboard, then out of aluminum and glass, and cutting them out. And I used to, I even took some plans for these things and sold them in the back of Popular Science magazine as kits. I called my little company Solar Devices when I was 16 years old. And I would sit in the back of English class with my little peachy folder and draw out all these ideas. I had just taken trigonometry in high school, and I would draw out new ways to make parabolic reflectors and write them out, and then type up the plans all carefully and draw them. And I would keep the names and mailing addresses of all the people who were interested in this. I would sell these plans for $4 each. And I sold 10,000 of them because of these ads in the back of Popular Science magazine. It actually paid my way through college. And when I graduated from college, that's when the IBM PC was released. And I went out and bought an IBM PC. You can see here this old green monochrome monitor with 2 floppy drives. And I fell in love with software. You'll see how this ties into saving the planet in a moment. And I started a software company after I graduated, and I sold that company to Lotus in 1985 for $10 million. And I started an educational software company after that I sold for $90 million to Vivendi in 1995. But now, having the full entrepreneurial bug and having started a few companies, I really wanted to make a way to do multiple companies under one roof. And I started Idealab as a technology incubator. And it was really a business designed to create businesses where we would have shared resources for company creation. And I wanted to model it after Edison Labs. Edison had this lab where he would start different projects, the phonograph, the light bulb, spin them out into separate companies. I wanted to do something maybe not as grand as that, but along those same ideas where we could test ideas and then spin them out into separate independent entities. It was really one of the first startup studios, and I'm so pleased that this idea has scaled and many people are doing this around the world now, because I believe that entrepreneurship is a great way to make a difference on the planet, and I'm so happy that more people are being drawn to entrepreneurship over these last 25 years since I first started that. Well, we look for opportunities that are big and broken and brainstorm technology solutions to fix them. Well, right now I feel humanity's biggest challenge, biggest problem is powering the planet renewably. Back to the thing that I saw as a teenager, it's only gotten worse. The amount of ppm, parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere was 315 parts per million when I was a teenager. Now it's 415. It's gone up 100 parts per million just in my lifetime. And that's something that we need to control and reverse. Well, at Idealab, we started off with these first 12 ideas in 1996. Since then, we've had more than 5,000 ideas. We turned 150 of them into companies, and we've had 50 successful IPOs and acquisitions. And if I look back over these last 25 years at the most valuable lessons that I've learned, I really think there are 25 things that I wish someone had told me 25 years ago before I started, and I tried to summarize those lessons. Here are all 25 lessons. I'm not going to go through these right now, and you can't be able to tell these from the screen here, but at our website at idealab.com, you can get a link to each of these and hear more about them. But I'm going to pull out a few of these that particularly apply to powering our planet renewably and show you how I've employed those to build companies to address that. And maybe some of these same ideas would be useful to other entrepreneurs to do the same thing, because we need to do this at very big scale. We need to do this way beyond what I and Idealab can possibly do. We need many, many people all over the earth working on this. So what are the few ideas that I think most apply to this? Well, one, challenge the status quo. You really need to find something that is bold and different if you want to make a difference in the world. And at first, you might be ridiculed for it. You might even fail if you have an idea ahead of your time. But if you can power it through those stages of being ridiculed, then being opposed, because soon you start threatening people, and then finally make it being accepted as self-evident, then you really have made the world a better place and caused something to happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Number two, find great timing. I gave a whole TED talk about timing because I found out that timing accounts much more for success or failure than almost anything else. More than the amount of funding you get, more than the business model. The world really has to be ready for what you're offering. And that's completely true about climate tech right now, because the world is finally ready for that. The world needs it badly. People are realizing it. Governments are realizing it. Companies are realizing it. The timing is finally right for this in a way that it wasn't when I dreamed about this many, many years ago. Next, find product market fit. One thing I learned in starting so many companies is that you never get it right directly out of the gate. You need to find what it takes to get customer delight. You need to change your proposition. You need to adjust your offering so that people really, really are pulling what you are making. Because it's so expensive to advertise or market something to somebody who doesn't want it. By finding product market fit, you can avoid that. Boxer Mike Tyson once had this incredible line about boxing, but it actually applies to business too. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, how does that apply to business? Well, I feel like the customer punches you in the face when they get your idea, and you need to adapt and move and flex to what the customer is telling you to get that perfect product market fit to really make your idea take off. Next, be remarkable. Great quote. Advertising is a tax on being unremarkable. Again, I said it was very expensive to advertise things to people to make them want something that you're making. But if you can find a way to make your offering remarkable to the customer and to the world, find a way to stand out, make your offer exceptional, that really is a big difference for making a business successful. Next, use Moore's Law. Gordon Moore coined this 50 years ago, and nothing has ever gone down as much in price or as fast as the cost of computing power. And businesses that smartly harness this effect will win. So finding a way to use Moore's Law in the battle against climate change, in the battle to save the planet, is a very, very powerful way to go. And it's because all commodities fluctuate in price. Beef or oil or steel or coffee, they all go up and down. Steel goes down, and then recently steel goes up, and now lumber is up with demand. But the only thing that consistently goes down is computing power. The green curve here is just going down, 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 not by a little bit, by 1 trillion times over the last 50 years. So finding a way to use more computation in your business or your idea, and especially if you're trying to fix the planet, is a very, very powerful differentiator. And 2 more, iterate like crazy. You never get it right out of the gate. I'll talk to you about some of the ideas we're working on and how important iteration was to their success. Your first idea is step 1, but you can find gold by adapting with what you learn from customers. And I really feel that you win on iteration by getting the most learning per unit time. And maybe in hindsight, I realize I shouldn't have called it Idealab. I should have called it Iterate Lab, because how important iteration is to a business's success. And last but not least, be persistent. The emotional journey of creating anything great will almost always have a dark swamp of despair along the way. You start out feeling this is the best idea ever. This will be fun. You start realizing, well, maybe this is harder than I thought. This is going to be a lot of work. Then you have to fight through that middle part to get across the other side. And the way you get across with belief and persistence is the way you make an idea come into being that wouldn't have happened otherwise. There will be many challenging days, and it's how you manage that adversity that determines success or failure. And I learned this over and over again from starting so many companies. So now, how to apply those to saving the planet? Well, we need to apply this in thousands of places. I'm going to go over two particular companies that we're working on, but I think those same lessons need to be applied over and over and over again in many, many areas because, as I said earlier, energy is the biggest industry on earth. If we want to remake an entire energy transition, we need to do it in many, many areas. So let me talk to you first about energy storage, making energy storage as cheap as dirt. Very, very important thing. Why is that so important? Wind and solar have had a dramatic reduction in cost. 22 times price decline for wind, 200 times price decline for solar. We reached a tipping point in all of history in 2017 when wind and solar became cheaper than fossil fuel electricity for the first time ever. The only problem is that renewables won. They won the price war, but at the wrong time of day. Because now wind and solar are cheaper than diesel or coal or combined gas, except wind is when the wind is blowing, sun is when the sun is shining. So we need some way to store that energy, and that will be the final bottleneck. The low-cost hurdle is storing energy at a cost which, when added to solar or wind, gives baseload power whenever you want it. That's cheaper than fossil fuels. So one effort that we have was to look at how do we do that? Batteries are too expensive. I looked at the only 3 major ways to store energy, which are chemically with batteries, thermally with hot or cold, or mechanically with gravity, compressed air, or flywheels. Gravity is one of our biggest storage methods because we build dams to hold water up in the air and let the water flow back down. And that's how we get a lot of our energy back, just from that gravity storage of holding water up behind a concrete wall. We need to get much, much lower than those costs. This is the cost of storing energy with different methods. Flywheels, 45 cents a kilowatt hour. Flow batteries, 25 cents. Lithium-ion batteries are down to 25 cents. Pumped hydro, pumping water up a mountain or having a dam, is about 17 cents a kilowatt hour. But we need to get down to 3. We need to get down much, much lower, fully 5 or 6 times cheaper than the cheapest ever. And right now, with pumped hydro, you need a mountain with 2 reservoirs to put the water up and let the water flow back down, and that's way too expensive. So we started looking at all kinds of ways to replicate that idea, but without needing a mountain. And one idea we had was lifting buckets of gravel up, like with a ski lift. That was too expensive. We looked at making a mound by lifting gravel up with a conveyor belt and then bringing it back down. That was too expensive. We looked at building a big silo, a big tall water cylinder that we pump water up into and let it flow back down. That was way too expensive. We started making it out of steel or even tapered steel to try and reduce the amount of steel. Still too expensive. We looked at making towers out of cups with concave bottoms to make them stronger. You could see all the iterations we were going through. We tried different methods of construction. We tried things using the ancient idea of the Roman arch to make the building stronger. Still way too expensive. We even looked at using a crane to lift up a weight, and that was way, way too expensive until we had a eureka moment, which was, what if you had a crane that lifted up blocks and stacked them? And you could use computer vision to automatically stack the blocks. And this is me playing around with my son in my shop at home with a little toy crane from Amazon and building up the blocks. And the idea of stacking blocks, that actually got within range. With a simple crane, you can get close. With a 2-arm crane with symmetrically loaded weights, you could get better. And with a custom-made 6-arm crane with composite blocks, you could get right into the range. So this was the iteration we took to get to this basic idea. We then had to test it. So we bought a used 45-meter crane, filled some 55-gallon drums with cement. We lifted them up and stacked them automatically, and we proved that the basic idea would work. And that led to the formation of this company, Energy Vault, a gravity storage system that could lift up, take wind power, for example, or solar power, lift up the blocks, build them up, and store energy, and then lower them back to the ground to get the energy back. It basically works like this. The blocks are low near the ground when you are in the unstored position. With energy from the grid or from a wind farm or a solar farm, you build up the tower. Then they lower back down to the ground to discharge. You can get about 85% round trip efficiency, which is about the same as lithium ion batteries, which are in the high 80s. But it's way, way cheaper because we can make the blocks out of dirt or recycled material or even material that needs to be remediated, material that you want to get rid of to avoid it from causing pollution. So by using recycled material in the blocks, we can make them very cheap because we just need mass. And this was the basic concept. We wanted to go ahead and take a system where we could build them up. We drew what we imagined it to be like. We had a concept for building this system in Switzerland, in a valley here where this one tower would store enough energy for the entire village. And this was the concept, and this is the reality. 2 years later, we had a full system built. It's a 75-meter crane with the 6 arms, lifting the concrete blocks and storing energy from renewable sources so the entire city can be powered renewably. This is what it looks like in the winter. You can see some of the blocks on the ground. This is a stack. These blocks are 35-ton blocks. They're 1 meter by 2 meter by 4 meters. Here we are lifting one of the blocks up to store the energy. Here's a person standing on one of the blocks on the ground, just so you can see how big they are. This is lying on its side, and those are the blocks standing up behind him. And this idea is pretty simple at heart, but it leads to great, great low-cost energy storage. And that led to billions of dollars of demand from around the world. There's lots of global interest in this, and we hope this can play a part in having renewables have a bigger impact on taking that stored energy and now releasing it when customers need it most. So that's energy storage, and some of those lessons learned apply to that. And the second area is solar energy to fuel. So if you have electricity and you want to store it for nighttime, that method would work. But if you need fuel to power cement factories, steel factories, aviation, trucking, all the things that we still need fuel for, that we can't just use electricity for, and fuel accounts for much, much more than the electricity market. It's 25 times larger than the renewable electricity market. The only transportable renewable fuel is hydrogen. Hydrogen produces 0 emissions. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe. The problem with hydrogen is on Earth, you can't just find hydrogen. It's connected to something else. It's connected either to fossil fuels, hydrocarbons, or it's in biological mass, or it's in water. So there's lots of hydrogen on Earth, but it's not loose hydrogen. So to get loose hydrogen to use as a fuel, you need to split it. You need to split the molecule, split the hydrogen off of the molecule. So most of the hydrogen in the world today, about 99.9%, is made by steam methane reforming, which is burning or splitting natural gas, CH4, to get the H off of that. Only about 0.1% is made by renewably splitting water with electrolysis, by splitting H2O. Now, if you split hydrogen from CH4, that releases CO2 into the atmosphere. But if you split water, it releases nothing except oxygen. Right now, splitting methane is a third the cost of splitting water. So our whole goal is to find a way to split water for less than the cost of splitting methane. That would be revolutionary. So very similar to an energy vault, we iterated many ways using all those lessons learned I told you about to come up with a way to make clean hydrogen affordable. And we've built what we call a sunlight refinery at our company Heliogen, which enables 100% green hydrogen production. And how do we do that? Well, current renewable energy, like solar panels, have about a 21% capacity factor, which means they're on for about 21% of the year. Wind is about 33% capacity factor. Heliogen, we've come up with 85% capacity factor, meaning we can stay on almost all day long, which allows us to cost effectively split water because we can take the capital cost of splitting water and amortize it over most of the year. The way we do that is by creating high temperature and storing that energy in rocks. Traditional concentrated solar normally looks like this, but we've come up with a method that's a modular system that goes to way higher temperature. We iterated through many, many designs over many, many years. We use Moore's law, computer software, computer vision, algorithms to get the product smaller, mass manufacturable, and higher temperatures. And that led us to a system which is much smaller. You can see me standing in a field of our computer-controlled mirrors. We use computer vision to control those to achieve 1500 degrees centigrade. That high temperature allows us to store the energy and use that energy we have to split water cost effectively. Our system has a very, very small target. You can see that bright white target on the right tower there. We take all the heat from that target and we bring it down to this tank of rocks or ceramic where we store the high temperature, and then we convert that energy as needed. Because thermal storage is so much cheaper than electrical storage, we can store that energy cheaply enough to make hydrogen for less than the cost of hydrogen from natural gas. Green hydrogen for less than the cost of natural gas. So that's the holy grail. This is our plan at Heliogen to achieve this. This can make a huge difference because we can make fossil fuel that replaces fossil fuel, but it's completely green. And we use Moore's law to make that possible. We use less materials, we use less labor, we use less calibration, and it allows us to build modules in places of the earth where the sun is really great, and then make hydrogen so we can transport it to places where the sun isn't as great. So we can make modules, these tower systems, in the Southwest United States for all of North America, in Africa and the Middle East for all of Europe, in Australia for all of Southeast Asia. So this system, this sunlight refinery, we call it, can produce power all day long, all night long, and make green hydrogen. We're really, really excited about this. I once got a t-shirt recently that allowed you to fill in what my purpose is. And my son and I both filled this in, and I really determined my purpose is to solve climate change. That will make such a big difference in the world if we can do that. These ideas are needed so badly. And right now, this is the best time for climate change, energy transition, entrepreneurship. There's finally money available for it. The demand is off the charts. The whole world is reachable. And almost every part of the energy business can be disrupted with this new technology. The world finally cares about this. I would love to talk to you further about this. I'd love to answer any questions you have. I'd love to find ways to work together to bring this to the world. Please feel free to contact me, bill@idealab.com, or ask any questions in the chat, and I'll try and answer them later. But first, thank you very much. You've been a great audience. Really appreciate it.
Bill, thank you so much. I feel so lifted because all of the knowledge you've just instilled with us just has like given us all a vision and a way to move forward and decompress with everything we've had. Thank you so much for your deep insights. Your career is astounding, and we are so delighted to have you join us. Thank you from everybody here at CogX. We really appreciated you joining us for our keynote today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Where has day 2 of CogX gone? The day has flown by. That was Radical Ideas to Save the Planet. And the keynote was given to us by Bill Gross, who's the founder and chairman of Idealab. That was wonderful. Today, we've had a breadth of topics and discussions from data-driven insights for sustainability transformation, to digital twins for energy, to financing and designing net zero cities, to energy futures with hydrogen and carbon reducing technology to manage climate risk. looking ahead to engineering life for space over 500 years. And then, of course, with the session we've just had, our keynote with Bill, Radical Ideas to Save the Planet. All that leaves me to do is to thank all of our fantastic speakers and moderators and panelists who've joined us over the course of the day, and to the team working behind the scenes. You have made me look fantastic today, so a huge, massive thank you to Olivia, to Jen, to AJ and Monique, who have been helping us to present this stage to you. See you tomorrow here on the Planet Stage. We'll be back kicking off at 10 a.m. and I'll be here for some of the virtual portions of that day. So this is me, Anushka Sharma, signing out for today. And don't forget to enjoy some of the content that's still happening across the many stages at CogX. Thank you.